Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Keck, and I am here working with Vitify, and we have made a great decision to every Thursday night invite the doctor in to teach us on different issues. So Dr. Jeremy is in the house tonight, and he's going to be sharing with us some information on autoimmune issues. And then as well, he's going to be teaching us how does curcumin, our product, impact those diseases. So without any further ado, I am just going to let him take it over and share with you, and then I'll be back at the end of it.
Hey guys, welcome. Thanks, Anna, for having me on. Appreciate that. And I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about a subject that I'm very passionate about. Anna, do I need to enter the people? I'm not sure if you can still do that or if I have to do that.
No, I'll do that for you. You just focus on doing your teaching. How's that sound?
Okay, good, because I can't do two things at once.
I know it's kind of hard. So no, I got that. You do you, and I'll take care of that.
All right, you got it. Okay. Lots of people hopping on. That's great. So my name is Dr. Jeremy Thornton, and I am an internist, a chiropractic physician, and a clinical nutritionist in practice in Missouri for over 23 years now. And a big part of my practice is autoimmune disease, which is the topic tonight. And so I've got some really neat things to share with you. I think things that could be life-changing either for you or maybe a family member. And so that I hope that you pass this information along, and this will be available as a recording if you have somebody that couldn't make it tonight. And so if you don't, also if you yourself have struggled with autoimmune disease, would love to know that, and if so, what kind, and or if you have a family member maybe that has an autoimmune condition. So we got Texas in the house, and Georgia and Virginia, Arizona. We're all over the place. Welcome, Helen. Awesome, good stuff. And just curious if anybody here is dealing with autoimmune disease, and if so, if you don't mind, don't have to share, of course, what you're struggling with, or maybe what you're interested in sharing with maybe a family member, what they're struggling with. And as we can, I'm going to try to wrap up this subject hopefully in about 30 minutes. Leave some time for Q&A at the end. And I ask you to hold questions till the end, or actually, what I'd rather you do is maybe as you think of questions, enter them in the chat. If you know where that's at, click on chat, and you can type in questions there. And I'll try to get to those questions at the end. So, autoimmune disease here in the US is up to 50 million people. And they estimate about 14% of the population is currently struggling with autoimmune disease. Researchers have identified somewhere between 80 and 100 different separate autoimmune conditions. I think that's amazing. And some say even up to maybe 150 different autoimmune conditions. And they say that autoimmune disease is increasing, depending on what type of autoimmune disease we're talking about, increasing by between 3% to 9% every year. Year after year, that's the expected increase in autoimmune disease here in America. So we're talking about the most common autoimmune diseases are rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid autoimmune disease. We have celiacs, Graves', which is another thyroid disease, diabetes type 1, vitiligo, rheumatic fever, pernicious anemia, alopecia. Those are the most common. Of course, there's many, many, many more. And one of the other startling facts is that if you have an autoimmune condition, and I see that several people here are struggling, Hashimoto's, polymyositis, hemochromatosis, leiomyomatosis. So we got several here, so you guys are well versed in this, that 25% will go on to develop more autoimmune conditions, right? If one wasn't enough. And they say if you do have an autoimmune disease, there's 11 times greater risk that you're going to develop another autoimmune disease. And I think that's startling and scary in and of itself. And so that's what I see in my practice. A lot of times people will come in and they've got Hashimoto's, but they've also got lupus, or they've got lupus, but they've also got, rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia or something along these lines. And, the immune system just gets confused, right, during this process and thinks that your body is the bad guy. That's really what happens in an autoimmune disease. The immune system starts attacking you. And depending on what organ, tissue, system that immune system, is attacking, is what the diagnosis ends up being, right? And we can run blood work to look at specific antibodies towards specific tissues or specific glands. And we can oftentimes figure out which classification or which diagnosis that would be. Traditional medical care for autoimmune disease is sadly very lacking. So we have, as far as standard medical treatment, we have steroids, right? That's the most common treatment. In some autoimmune diseases, we will use autoimmune suppressing drugs because, right, if your immune system is attacking you and we want it to attack you less, let's just suppress your immune system. But you've probably even seen the commercials on TV, right? This drug could also make you die of an infection, right? Because your immune system is suppressed. I'm laughing, but it's really quite scary. And that's really the best we have for autoimmune disease, either steroids, trying to get the inflammation down, or immune suppressing drugs, which have a whole host of other side effects. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about the causes of autoimmune disease. We're going to talk about root causes. We're going to talk about a few treatment strategies. And then we're going to talk about one of my most favorite tools in my autoimmune toolbox. And then we're going to talk about an exciting new technology here in just a few minutes. So causes, a lot of people just believe that autoimmune disease is all genetics, right? Because maybe your mom had Hashimoto's, so you have Hashimoto's, or your dad had rheumatoid arthritis, so you have rheumatoid arthritis. And genetics does increase susceptibility. That's definitely possible. But I use this saying all the time with my patients is, genetics might load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Okay. Genetics load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So just because you might have that in your genetics, in your parents or grandparents, does not mean that has to express in you. But if the lifestyle is right, and they call that epigenetics, right, is what's going on around that could flip that genetic switch to start that disease, that particular disease process, or autoimmune disease in this case, then that could transpire. So 70% is believed to be caused by just environmental factors. So we have to think about, with autoimmune disease, we have to think about diet, we have to think about lifestyle, we have to think about chemicals, and we have to think about infections. A great majority of autoimmune diseases are wrapped up in those four topics right there. And it's not talked about very often, right? Because it's just simpler to write a prescription and give you a steroid rather than trying to get to the bottom of what's going on behind the scenes. So some toxins that we commonly see associated with autoimmune disease are things like heavy metals, smoking, breast implants, pesticides, plastics, hormones in our food. Those are a few of the things that might fall under chemicals and lifestyle. Infections is a big one. I'm going to screen share, I think, a visual that's really helpful. If I could remember how to do this. All right. Anna, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. It looks great.
There you go. Okay. So this is a visual that I like to use to explain some of the root causes, right? We don't just get autoimmune disease just willy-nilly. It's not just luck of the draw. There's things, there's root causes, there's underlying issues that are creating the immune turmoil that eventually leads the immune system to start attacking you, right? And so here's just a few of them. We talked a little bit about this: nutritional deficiencies. Things like vitamin D is probably one of the biggest factors. If you haven't had your vitamin D levels checked, I'd encourage you. It's a very inexpensive blood test, carries a lot of weight with your either tendency to get autoimmune disease or your ability for your immune system to properly handle autoimmune disease if you currently have it. Things like omega-3s, antioxidants like glutathione. We're going to talk about another one here soon called curcumin. Blood sugar dysregulation is another one, whether it's diabetes or just simple insulin resistance, which we talked about this last week. So if you battle type 1 or type 2 diabetes, reach out and get the training we did last week. We talked a lot about that. Leaky gut. So this is a huge one, and I see this a lot in practice. So they say 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And an unhealthy gut barrier leads to overactivation of the immune system. So leaky gut can come from a lot of things. So we could talk about stress. We could talk about the toxins that we just mentioned. We could talk about pain medicine, the steroids they give you for your autoimmune disease, right? Or the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. There's a lot of wear and tear on our gut, and that's where they get the term leaky, right? So now we're just eating our normal diet, and those food particles start to prematurely pass through that intestinal lining, right? That intestinal barrier gets compromised, and now your immune system starts to see these food particles, these food proteins, and because it's not used to seeing it at that point, it starts to label some of those foods as evil, right? And once your body labels that food as a bad guy, it doesn't try to figure out anymore, right? Every time you eat that food, it's now creating an immune response. That immune response can then turn around, and if you have autoimmune disease, start attacking you more, right? It's kind of like stirring up a hornet's nest. There's some that believe in molecular mimicry, where we start to develop leaky gut. Our immune system starts to label that food protein as being a bad guy. And let's say it's gluten. We like to pick on gluten, and it is a common troublemaker. Let's say it doesn't like that gluten, right? And starts creating an immune response, creating an inflammatory response to gluten in your diet. And along the way, it says, you know what, that gluten kind of looks like that protein in her thyroid. Maybe the thyroid's a bad guy too, right? Flips the switch and boom, we're dealing with Hashimoto's. Or you know what, that protein in that gluten kind of looks like that cartilage in his knee or in his wrists or in his fingers. And maybe it's a bad guy too. And now we're dealing with rheumatoid arthritis. So those are just a few examples. Chronic infections, chronic underlying and often hidden infections can be a root cause. I see an awful lot of things like Epstein-Barr virus or Epstein-Barr virus reactivation. We could talk a lot about these all night. I'm just going to try to touch on a few. I see an awful lot of hidden gut infections, going back to leaky gut, things like yeast or candida or bacterial infections, even parasites. Hormone imbalances, especially estrogen dominance, can be a big driver for autoimmune disease. Food sensitivities, this goes back to what we talked about with leaky gut, the immune system being triggered by foods. Adrenal fatigue, this comes back to stress and lifestyle, right? Can be a big driver. Our adrenals were designed for fight or flight stress. That's what God made them for. They're not so well designed for chronic, prolonged, protracted stress. Now, whether that's external stress when we're busy adulting, or loss of loved ones, or financial stress, physical stress, poor lifestyle choices, all of those things can tax the adrenal glands. Adrenal fatigue can lead to immune dysregulation and upregulation, which can lead to autoimmune disease. And of course, we already talked about toxins and chemicals. Mental emotional stress, we could also wrap up in there with the adrenal fatigue. So I hope that made sense, and I hope that was helpful. Strategies for autoimmune disease is working through some of those things. I'd encourage you, if you don't have a health professional that's willing to maybe dive into some of these potential health challenges, I encourage you to find one. I'd encourage you to maybe look into a more of an integrative medical center or an integrative medical physician, or maybe a functional medicine physician that's doing more some of the naturopathic approach of root cause instead of just symptomatic treatment. Now, I'm not against steroids per se, but I don't think it makes sense as a sole treatment for autoimmune disease. I don't think is a great idea when we're not talking about triggers, we're not talking about or looking at underlying issues or underlying causes. And so let's talk just a little bit. I know I'm flying through this. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Make sure that as you think of things, if there is questions, type them up in the chat box, and we'll try to get to those at the very end. So, treatment strategies could be looking at gluten, right? Could be looking at getting food sensitivities checked. You might try what they call an autoimmune paleo diet. And if you don't know what that is, Google it. You'll find more than you ever want to know about that. That's effective for a lot of people. There's also a little bit different approach called autoimmune keto. Different ways through our diet that we can reduce inflammation and we can calm down that overactive immune system. Again, I mentioned vitamin D earlier, and one of my favorite tools in my toolbox is curcumin. So curcumin, of course, comes from from turmeric, from the curcuma longa plant, right, which is the root of it. And we've known for thousands of years that through Ayurvedic medicine, especially, that turmeric and curcumin had special qualities. And as we've gone on and as the research has poured in, there's been in just the last 30 years, there's been over 18,000 studies and papers done on curcumin in various aspects of health. And if you Google just curcumin and about any health condition you can think of, you're going to find so much information. And if you're, a research nerd like me, go to PubMed.gov, go into PubMed and just type in the search bar, curcumin and autoimmune disease, curcumin and lupus, curcumin and, diabetes, whatever the case may be. And you're going to find just volumes of research on those topics. It's pretty exciting stuff. And that they wouldn't spend this much money on research, over 18,000 publications, if there wasn't some pretty exciting results out there on that. And so if I've got it here, I just printed up a few research articles that I just wanted to share, just a few topics with you, just to give you a little bit of an idea what's out there. This was from the journal Advances in Experimental Medicine and Biology. Curcumin and autoimmune disease. Recent studies show that curcumin ameliorates multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel disease in humans and animal models. Then it goes on to talk about how it regulates inflammatory cytokines such as interleukin-1 beta, interleukin-6, interleukin-12, tissue necrosis factor alpha, and a lot of other boring things. So a randomized pilot study to assess the efficacy and safety of curcumin in patients with active rheumatoid arthritis. Let's see here. This is where they took people and they divided the head rheumatoid arthritis, divided them into two groups. One received curcumin, the other received diclofenac sodium, which is a pretty potent anti-inflammatory medication. It's a little bit stronger than ibuprofen. And in this study, the curcumin group showed the highest percentage of improvement on all the pain scales that they measured at the end of that study. Curcumin, autoimmune and inflammatory diseases, going beyond conventional therapy. Let's see here. Disease. Gaining ground in treatment of autoimmune and inflammatory diseases due to the wide range of bioactive compounds capable of exerting substantial anti-inflammatory and antioxidant actions. The effects can be associated with improvement of symptoms and induction of remission in inflammatory bowel disease patients, reduction of erythema and induration of lesions in psoriasis, and slows down the disease progression in patients with sclerosis. Furthermore, curcumin shows effects equivalent to ibuprofen and diclofenac without the adverse effects generally reported by patients. In this model, they produced multiple sclerosis in an animal model, and then they showed how curcumin, they saw a significant decrease in the amounts of demyelination. So multiple sclerosis, they lose that myelin covering on the nerves and on the brain, right? And that creates a lot of those neurological symptoms in MS. Decreases in the amounts of demyelination, inflammation, and blood-brain barrier breakdown were seen utilizing the curcumin in this model. It decreased oxidative stress and improved remyelination. So not only did it slow down the demyelination in MS, it helped start to create more myelin back on the nerves. So that is pretty amazing. Now that is an animal study, and so of course human studies are ongoing. So we hope we can see the same benefits there. And so that's just a little bit. Now there's a lot more research out there on all kinds of autoimmune diseases. Again, if you want to go to PubMed and just do your own search there, I think, or your own concerned area maybe of a health challenge, I'd encourage you to do that. But one of the issues that we face, and I've faced in practice over the last 20 plus years, is curcumin has issues with bioavailability. Okay, in fact, this is what this one article here from the journal Molecular Pharmacology says: bioavailability of curcumin, problems and promises. And it talks about how clinical trials have shown that curcumin is safe even at high doses in humans, but it exhibits poor bioavailability. Major reasons contributing to the low plasma and tissue levels of curcumin appear to be due to poor absorption, rapid metabolism, and rapid systemic elimination. And so that's been the challenge. We've known all these exciting things that it could do in a lab, in a test tube, in cell cultures, injected into lab animals and things like that. But when you give the curcumin or the turmeric to a human, they swallow it, they were not seeing any of those benefits that they were seeing in the lab. And the reason is because it is poorly bioavailable. So over the years, we've tried to figure out different ways to increase that bioavailability, that absorption into the bloodstream, ultimately into the cells, so that we could get all of those amazing benefits. And so part of the reason is that curcumin is a lipid-like substance. So it's a fat-like substance or an oil-like substance. And of course, our bloodstream is mostly water. So we're trying to get a lipid substance into the bloodstream. And of course, we know that oil and water don't mix well. And so that's been one of the hurdles to overcome to get these amazing benefits of curcumin in the human body to take effect. And so what I've done over the years is, of course, as new research has come out, tried different versions of curcumin. So more recently, they've used black pepper extract has been used to try to increase absorption into the human body. And that has worked to a certain degree. The problem is black pepper use chronically could have its own side effects. And I have a lot of patients that over time, using it for long periods of time, are having tummy issues because of chronic use of black pepper. And the other thing is that when you swallow like a curcumin capsule, for example, or a turmeric capsule, or even grind fresh turmeric, it's maybe in the bloodstream for 2 to 3 hours, and then it's gone. Remember that rapid metabolism of the that we talked about, the rapid systemic elimination, and so then you'd have to take it again. So with patients, I would have to dose their curcumin, usually several capsules, 2 to 3, 4 times a day, to try to keep it in the bloodstream long enough to have a therapeutic effect, right? And that's the whole thing. And so the reason that I'm excited about this new technology is recently a new German technology has come out that has figured out a way to make curcumin bioavailable, and not only just a little bit more bioavailable like black pepper extract, but up to 277 times more bioavailable, not percent, 277 times. And so when I saw that research, I got excited about it. And I thought, if this is true, this is going to be life-changing for a lot of patients, because I already knew the benefits of curcumin. I already knew the struggles with curcumin, And I was excited that this BioMS technology has overcome that hurdle. In fact, it's in the bloodstream within 5 minutes. And instead of being excreted within 2 to 3 hours, it's still in the bloodstream over 24 hours later. That's how exciting and amazing this new technology is, called the BioMS technology. And so what I've seen in patients myself, I've seen improvements in a lot of the conditions we've just talked about. I have seen improvements in antibody levels and blood work. I've seen a decrease in inflammatory markers with these conditions, and of course, improvement in symptoms has been remarkable. And I've only been utilizing this particular technology for just a few months. And so anyway, I know I've rambled on for a while. I wanted to see if I asked some people maybe to share just a brief testimonial if they're on. We have 28 people on. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Kyli, are you
We've had
here?
a few come on and get off, so that's been great.
Hey, I'm here.
Hey there.
Hi.
So Kyli and I have been friends, and her husband Ryan of ours for many, many years. And she has just a really cool testimony I wanted her to share.
Well, cool. It's something. No. Yes, thanks for having me on. Dr. Jeremy gets to work with me hand in hand just about every day, trying to figure out how to get my body back to normal. So my journey began 5 years ago. I went strict keto. A lot of things changed in my body for the good. But there were still some things that were off. And so 2019, I discovered a extremely large tumor on my thyroid, which made no sense because I was completely healthy. I was eating right. I didn't consume gluten. I did all of the things. I was teaching all these women how to live a ketogenic lifestyle, the women that had Hashimoto's, how to live a ketogenic lifestyle, not knowing that just a few years later, I was going to be diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So found a large tumor on my thyroid in 2019. Had to have a total thyroidectomy within months of finding the tumor. And the results come back, oh yeah, it's benign, but you have Hashimoto's. And because of how large the tumor was, they told me it had been growing for a very long time. After my time with Dr. Jeremy, we've discovered that I've probably had Hashimoto's for the majority of my life. Maybe I know I got really, really sick. He talked about traumatic experiences, severe illnesses. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks as a 7-year-old little girl. So for me, living with the Hashimoto symptoms was all I knew. And so chronic fatigue, chronic pain, dry hair, dry skin, all of those things, not sleeping well. I was taking melatonin every single night until I found this amazing little product here. So like I said, chronic pain was all I knew, even cutting out the inflammatory inducing foods. I did the AIP that Dr. J talked about. I've done it all. I've tried it all. I'm not I try not to be nutrient deficient. He's helping me there too, but I've done all of the things. The only thing that has really changed for me is adding this liquid gold into my daily routine. And I saw a question a while ago. She asked if you could double dose. So when I first got started, my chronic pain was so bad. It took me a while to get out of bed. I'm only 35, guys. I shouldn't be getting out of bed like a 90-year-old lady. And I refused to let that be my life. And so I took 10 drops a day, twice a day for about 3 days and started to notice like, hey, like I got out of bed easier today, or I could accidentally have something that would trigger inflammation in my body, make my body hurt, and it wouldn't hurt. And so about a full month in, my life has completely just changed for the better. I feel great. I feel like a 35-year-old. I actually feel younger than a 35-year-old, but for the first time in my life, I don't have just crazy joint pain. And my sleep, I haven't had to take melatonin to sleep in months, which is huge because I wake up feeling groggy from the melatonin. So that was no fun for me. I'm a mom of 3 very active kids. So being tired and foggy is not okay. And my brain fog from the Hashimoto's has lifted. And I wake up I have energy. I have good energy. I just feel good all day long. So definitely been a game changer. And Dr. J just did some blood work on me. It looked pretty good, right? Still crazy,
Definitely.
Kylie, but no, I'm feeling good. I feel like we didn't even talk about inflammation markers. I'm pretty sure they were fairly low.
Oh yeah, they were really great.
We're getting there. Yes, we're getting there. So this is, for me, I'm like, oh, this is what normal is supposed to feel like. So it's been a huge blessing in more ways than one.
That's awesome, Kylie. Thanks for sharing. Susie typed up in the chat. I've known Susie for a very long time. She had severe fibromyalgia and long haul COVID. Spent most of last year in bed or my recliner, not leaving my house, praying for help. I saw the yellow gold on Doc's Facebook page. Hallelujah, I have so many things that are getting better. That's super exciting. A friend of mine, Carrie, who was going to be on tonight but couldn't make it. She had to work. But she shared this, was a post she recently shared on Facebook. She says, anyone that knows me knows I'm very quiet about my health struggles. I'm too stubborn and tough to be or feel weak. I've shared more since finding a supplement that my amazing friend, Dr. Jeremy, introduced me to. I've been taking it since September and keep seeing positive health changes from rheumatoid arthritis pain, relief to lupus, inflammation, fibromyalgia, vertigo, acid reflux. The list keeps growing. My pain is so much better. I sleep so good. No more waking up through the night. My overall mood feels great. I'm not reaching for the ibuprofen anymore that she used to take 4 times a day. I never imagined that possible. So that was just a little bit from Carrie. But anyway, I know that I've kept you already half an hour, right? That's not too bad. I tried to keep it around 30 minutes.
You did
is
amazing.
Sylvia on? I asked Sylvia to come on. She wasn't sure if she could make it either. She'd be traveling and might be in bad service. But if not, that's totally fine. I wanted to make sure that, Anna, would you tell them about the Liquid Gold group? I want to make sure if they're not in there, they need to be.
Yes, I'd be more than happy to share that. We have a group. It's an educational as well as a testimonial group. It's called Liquid Gold Wellness. So if you're not in there, make sure that you're in there. Reach out to the person who invited you here. They'd be more than happy to add you into that group. As well as if you're ready to get your own health journey started and start seeing how quickly you can get some results for yourself, reach out again to the person who invited you here tonight, and they'd be more than happy to hook you up with some Liquid Gold, and then you can come and share your story in the future. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, showing up tonight. Thank you, Dr. Jeremy, and thank you, Kylie, for sharing your testimony. Guess what? Next week, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to pick another health issue, and we're going to talk about it. In fact, I think we kind of decided we're going to talk about leaky gut. Was that kind of what we talked about?
I think so. Yeah.
So
that would
next
go
week,
well with what we just talked about.
Should we dive down deeper on that, or should we go with something else?
I like that idea.
Okay, so we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper with that. You know, a few years ago, I did not even really realize how many people had autoimmune issues. And someone explained it to me, and it made the most sense because, you know, I'm a mom. I had 3 kids. Now I have grandkids. And you know how sometimes that child gets on your last nerve and just jumps up and down, and they just like will not leave you alone. And then once you snap, that's what autoimmune diseases are. It's something gets in one of your system and jumps up and down and irritates it until it can no longer take it. And then it snaps. And then you're left with the consequences of dealing with that disease. So do all the things. You like that explanation? You know, as a parent, we can all relate to that because we always have that one child that just, you love them, but you want to choke them sometimes. Did I say that? Did I say that? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So anyway, hopefully you all learned something from tonight and you're ready to move your health journey forward. Thank you so much for showing up, and we look forward to seeing you again and hearing about your experience with this great product. So be blessed. Have a wonderful evening. Probably you're going to all go to bed. It's pretty late here. So we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, guys.